Hello, welcome back to another episode of the Goat Marketing Show. I'm happy to be back. I missed last week. Was it just last week? Who knows?
Yeah,
They're
I think
starting
so.
to they're starting to blur together as we get into the fall rush of what week is what week. I was off sick for a couple days last week, so I appreciate John and Doug going through and doing their episodes. You guys talked about like content ideation, if I remember correctly.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, we were talking about like where people get inspiration for coming up with content, and if you're feeling that like writer's block or that content block. So that was a good one.
Nice. Very relatable episode for a lot of people, I imagine. Um, a lot of the stuff that we talk about on this show is content generation specific. And this episode probably won't be too different. Maybe not content in like the content marketing sense, but like it's still probably going to be talking about uh, outputs using AI. But we really wanted to kind of dive in maybe into some of the other tools that we've been using and looking at it more from like a process perspective than just you know, these are the outputs that we generate with AI. And we were kind of talking about it before the show, and like it was difficult to kind of create that distinction between like do when we're using it for content and when we're using it for process, because a lot of our process is around developing the content. And I guess that's okay because it still does help with that process. I mean, all we talk about is how much more efficient we are with generating content. And I think aside from like the actual outputs that we would put online, one of the really beneficial areas for me specifically, like looking at it from a project management lens as opposed to like a content creator lens, is in briefing. Because when I'm given like, you know, this is the goal of a campaign, like how can we execute it? If this was maybe a year ago, you know, that would be a 3 or 4 hour working session with someone else going through and creating a Gantt chart and mapping out every step of it and budgeting time to each part. But now we can go into a tool like GPT and say, look, this is the product that we're doing a campaign for. We can almost brief GPT in like a much more high level way and say, you know, this is the goal of the campaign. This is the product for it. These are the parameters that we want to use. This is the budget, timeframe, geo. And it can actually like type out that brief, and you can have it type it out as like a written brief that you would then give to a specialist, or it can do it as granular as you like and create it into a spreadsheet that has roles and responsibilities and due dates, and you can get it super step by step. And so that process is probably the area that I've seen the most efficiency, or the biggest increase in efficiency, just because like as a PM, I'm not always, or very rarely, like am I actually like generating content with it. And so for me, I guess it would be more of a process thing, but it's not just a process thing. It's more of like a planning. And so, you know, if I'm the things that I would create with it would be like, you know, presentations to clients where I'm like, okay, this is our, you know, Q4 plan. I can use it to kind of give it my chicken scratch thoughts, and then it can help consolidate them into something more formal. And then I can start to see like that picture, start pulling things into like a PowerPoint or whatever medium I want to use to present it. So for me, that's where I've seen the biggest help, is just like taking away that time where I'm just staring at a bunch of pieces in front of me and trying to put them together. And it does that part like very well. Maybe not 100%. I still obviously still have to use the human element to edit it, but like having all these elements of a campaign in front of me instead of like staring at it and panicking and like, well, how do these all fit together? It'll do its best to put them together. And then it like take some of that pressure off where you can actually like start to see the picture. It's like having a whole bunch of puzzle pieces dumped out in front of you, and it like organizes them into the different colors and sections. And then you're like, okay, this is a little less overwhelming. But for you, like your job is content creation, and I'm sure you've talked you've talked a lot on here about how you use it to generate content. But are there ways that it's impacted like the actual process of creating content for you?
Yeah, I think how I would say it affects me in terms of processes. I think it's not just one tool. I think the biggest part that affects my process is stringing together as many of the tools as I can into one workflow. So the example that I can think of is when we have a podcast from one of our clients. Like I use probably 3 or 4 different AI tools to get that from receiving the raw files to posting it on YouTube and posting it on social channels and all that stuff. Like first, like when we receive the raw files, I would put that through an AI to give me a transcript. So that's the first one. That saves me so much time. And once I have that transcript, I put that into ChatGPT and have it summarize it, have it give me the main talking points, have it turn it into a blog post, have it turn it into social copy. So that alone saves me probably hours of having to go through a video, listen to it, figure out what's going on, what they're talking about, finding the main points. Like it just does all that for me. So that's 2 tools right there that make that workflow way better. And then when I'm actually doing the videos and editing the videos, I have another software called Veed that I use. That's really good for clipping content, and it has like an AI tool in it that will in like 30 seconds will take out dead spaces. It will take out people saying and all that stuff, and it'll really clean things up. And I don't have to do anything. Like I just click the button and it does it. But we're also experimenting with this new one called Opus Cut that you literally just give it the main video and it will cut it into as many clips as you decide, and it will then use AI to generate subtitles and captions and all that stuff. So I think the process thing, like all of these tools are still just creating content for me. But when it comes to a huge project like a podcast, like that's a lot of work to do that. And stringing together all those different tools at different parts in that process has been huge. Like I don't think that I would have enough time in the week to do all that if I wasn't using AI to do most of the work for me. So that's been huge.
The podcast itself is like the easiest part of the podcast process, like recording and editing like the full version. It's everything afterwards that's a pain. And I think you touched on like a really important piece of the AI workflow, because a lot of what we talk about is prompt engineering. So we always say the most important thing is engineering prompts from a basis of the context of what you're trying to do and putting as much effort into developing that context early on. And then we talk about command stacking, where now we have all these tried and true prompts that we love to use, and we're able to they're tried and true because of the context that we put into them. And now we can start combining them together to get these like really deep outputs. But now you're starting to talk about the third piece that maybe we haven't touched on as much, which is workflow automation, which is now like not just combining the prompts and the command stacking, but also combining other tools to create like this kind of circular piece of the puzzle to get the output that you're trying to do and make it repeatable. And so now that like, your first step is whatever, and then you have to go to the next tool to do the next thing, and the next tool to do the next thing. And it's like, it's not just, a random manual guess. You've actually like integrated these tools into a process that works for you.
Yeah. And I think as like we keep going down this road of AI, like people who are developing this stuff know what marketers want. Like they know what we're trying to do. They know what our processes are. And I think that as we keep going, like there probably will be a tool one day that does all of this stuff in the click of a button. Like you say, here's the raw file. You edit it into this is what I'm looking for. You also clip it into the socials, subtitle it, write me a blog post, write me the copy. And it'll probably be like, because that's a workflow that works. And it's something that a lot of different companies do for their content. And so I think that we're going to see too, and it's even like something like Opus Cut now that it's come out is a huge time saver, because I still like, even with the editing software that I use, I still have to go in and find the clips myself, like in the traditional way. But these new tools are coming out where they'll find the clips for you and they'll do that so that you don't have to. Obviously, you're going to have to, like with anything, you're going to have to go in and make sure that they're actually a good clip. But this stuff's only getting better, which makes me wonder, like, and we were talking about this before we hopped on here, but like as these tools get better, I'm wondering if ChatGPT is not going to become obsolete, but there are going to be tools that you're not going to need to go to ChatGPT for, because they're going to be built into the software that you're already using. And we're seeing a lot of that now. Like if you go into a Canva or a Sprout Social or some sort of like social media planning software, like a lot of them have the AI built into it now, where you upload a video or whatever, and it'll say, do you want to write a caption on this with AI? So you don't even really need to go into ChatGPT for that. And you used an analogy earlier. What was that you were talking about earlier?
Yeah, well, I think chat is becoming synonymous with just language processing in general, in the same way that like Kleenex, we use Kleenex when we mean tissue, or but we say Photoshop or Photoshop it as a verb when we just mean like editing photos. Like ChatGPT is what people are going to use when they just mean like language processing, but they could go to any tool to do that and they'll just call it GPT. And I think like on the reverse side of what you were saying is GPT is now trying to integrate all the things into their platform. So you come to them, like we're talking about, like they know what marketers want. What I want is for DALL-E to not absolutely suck at putting text on the images. It is so frustrating because it'll do this beautiful image that's exactly what you want, and then the text is just gibberish. I think if that gets nailed down, where you can like in GPT now, you can upload files to it and it can read files. If you could also integrate it with DALL-E, where you could, upload a logo into it, or like any sort of like creative, like reference creative that you have, and it can use that to generate the images, but also have text that like makes sense, isn't gibberish, like looks good. If it can be in like a specific font, that would be like insane. I would use that tool all the time. That would save so much time if it could do that and create these like completely unique things. That's my biggest frustration with it right now. And maybe what's going to happen is there'll be a tool that comes out that can do that image processing, and like you said, they add like a language service to it, and you just start going there for that.
Yeah, that's funny. We were trying to make new thumbnails for the GOAT marketing. So all of our thumbnails going forward from the GOAT marketing show are going to be DALL-E generated, and they're very good. Like Ben made a whole bunch last week, and they're very good. But you have to specify, do not put text on this, because when they try to write something, it's really like, I don't know if they spell any of the words correctly.
No, there was a really funny one where it did a calendar, and it started with Jan, like it got the Jan part, and then it did like numbers for some of the months, and then it did like May 3 times in a row, but May it had a V instead of a Y, and it was just nonsense. Yeah, that's frustrating. And I like how you said Ben made them. I did not. I just asked for them.
Oh, that's what, think about like the replacing something like Canva or Photoshop. Like you're saying, you upload the way that we upload context into GPT and say, like, here's this company, here's what we know about them, here's what we want to produce. here's all the details. Uploading all like a brand kit. You put your brand kit into DALL-E on ChatGPT, and forever in that thread, you can just say, hey, here's our episode of the Go Marketing Show this week. Make us a thumbnail. Here's the title. You already have our brand kit, and it can just do everything and put pictures of us and like, yeah, that would make a lot of things obsolete if we could do that.
That would be really cool in GPT if, like, instead of just having threads where you set up the context at the beginning, if you could actually like save personas in it, like putting as much brand context in, and you can even go as far as doing like a brand guide. Like if you could just have those saved, and then just like how you would click one of the plugins, if you could go, I want to do it for this persona, or if you want none, or whatever it is, like having that saved up front would be like, that would be unbelievable. I mean, I guess you could do it yourself, where you could just have that persona saved on the side and you could just input it into GPT every time you're trying to have a conversation with it. But if it was saved in there and it could like learn based on everything you've done with that persona, that would be an exciting leap as well. I think now we're just into like the wish list part of the conversation.
These things are coming. Like I think we'll be there sooner than you expect. Like it's going to be exponential, right? Like there's a lot to look forward to. There's a lot of, I think we have to keep having these conversations about like what we want to see, because then it puts it on the radar, and then someone's eventually going to do it.
Do you think it watches the show?
Yeah.
Just play the internet for like Santa.
Yeah, we should. Yeah, let's just keep putting episodes like this into ChatGPT, and it'll start creating its own new features.
I remember I was getting frustrated with the DALL-E outputs a couple days ago. I wonder if I can find the thing, but I asked it. I was like, why do you suck so much at putting words onto it? And it gave me an answer, and I want to see if I can find it, but it would have been a while ago. Maybe it was
whatever. It is weird. I don't know enough about that to understand why it wouldn't be able to do that.
I guess it's because language, there's two different things that it's doing, but like, it feels like that's the very logical next step, because I imagine everyone who's using it for the same purposes that we are is, having the same pain points.
I think the ramifications of that, if you could do all that, like how much, maybe it's not huge amounts of money, but the money that companies would save from having to, we think about like, we have a Canva account. We wouldn't have to have a Canva account anymore. We have an account for like stock photos and stock footage and stock music. We wouldn't have to do that anymore. I think it would be awesome to just have all that in one tool, and then you save on all of those monthly expenses.
I did find
what did it say?
I asked it because I was like, why does DALL-E struggle so hard with images that have words in them? The images make sense, but the words don't at all. It's not even English in a lot of places. And it said it's designed to generate images based on text prompts. And while it excels in visual representation, which it actually does, incorporating accurate and coherent text within those images can be challenging because of the complexity of the task. So I guess it adds another level to the image generation process. And but it struggles with making it coherent. It's just saying it's a more intricate task. I guess it's not explaining why. And although it's like trained on these vast amounts of images across the internet, and a lot of the images do contain text, I guess a lot of the images that it was trained on, it doesn't have the context for what the text is. And so like it, text, it might use it'll default to patterns that it sees frequently. Mm-hmm. But because it doesn't have the context of what those patterns maybe are in terms of text, like they won't make contextual sense.
Right. It's just guessing based on,
Yeah. Like it looks at it, it doesn't look at it like it's words. It looks at it like it's a pattern.
Interesting. Well, there's the tip for anyone trying to do image generation. We're not quite there yet with text,
Yeah.
so
Ask
keep
it
using
to,
it though. We definitely got some good thumbnails. You'll see them coming out in the next few weeks. Like it made some pretty cool pictures. So definitely, if you're looking to explore some stuff, like check out the Dolly. And if you so it's when you go into ChatGPT now, the same way that you find plugins, you hit that drop down menu, you'll see the option to use DALI, anyone trying to use that. And so go nuts with that. And it's DALI 3 now. So I think it's a new version of it.
it's really good at making like screensavers. I asked it to do one of like the Toronto skyline the other day, and it was actually pretty cool. I would use that. So if you're interested, have fun, play around with it. Ask it to help you come up with really detailed prompts to give it, and you'll get really good outputs. Just make sure you have no text. That's the only piece of advice I really have.
But anyway, I think we went down a little rabbit hole there, but to wrap it all up, yeah, we talked a bit about process today and kind of how the tools that we use help us with our processes and making them more efficient. I think what we'd like to do when Doug is back, he's on a plane right now, but when Doug is back either next week or the week after, I know we're going to have a guest, I think maybe next week or the week after, but when we have Doug back, we want to talk about more like less content creation processes and workflows and more like high level, bigger picture processes that AI is good for. And I know that he uses it for a lot of stuff in that realm that we don't see a lot of. So it'll be interesting to see if we ask him these kind of same questions, like what huge efficiencies he sees for like decision makers in different companies.
Awesome. Thanks for tying that up.
Mm-hmm. Wicked.
Awesome. Okay, cool. Well, thanks everyone for tuning in. We'll be back next week.
Take care, everybody.